Thank you for that beautiful music. You've heard it several times. I'm going to say it again. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am honored to have been asked to speak on a topic that is very close to my heart: combat sports. Specifically, fighting and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as a surprisingly spiritual practice. This talk is a testimony to the interdependence, seventh principle, of physical, mental, and spiritual practice and strength. And it's my ongoing journey towards wholeness. When I began studying Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, also known as BJJ, a year ago, I didn't know it would have such a profound effect on my life. I didn't really like the Ultimate Fighter Championship, UFC, or the idea of violence, and I was okay with self-defense, thinking I understood that it was necessary in unfortunate circumstances. I was vegan and trying to live the absolutely most passionately compassionate life I could. I still live passionately and compassionately, but I have more oomph now that I'm working to be a better fighter. Before I ever entertained the thought of trying a combat sport, I'd experienced a taste of what happens to the mind and then spirit through the training of one's body in new and challenging ways. While teaching English in another country, isolated by cultural and language barriers, I experienced the loneliest period of my life. So, I decided to pursue fitness for the first time ever, with my new free time and lack of distractions. I was video chatting with my friend Savannah, who was also lonely because she had just moved to Iowa from Arizona in order to attend veterinary school, and she also didn't really have the cultural understanding of the area, and there were sometimes language barriers. She mentioned that she'd always wanted to run a marathon, and I had been marathon watching The Biggest Loser and working out every weekday to Jillian Michaels' 30-Day Shred. So of course I said, I'll run one with you, because why not? 26.2 miles. At this point in my life, I could not run for a minute. A mile was longer than a minute without stopping or slowing to a walk. I had thought my former university roommate Danny had been bananas to run a 5K as if it were just a casual Sunday affair. It now is for me. I remembered faking asthma attacks so I could skip running laps in PE. I was that kid. After that goal-setting conversation, I loaded the Couch to 5K app on my not actually a phone because of ridiculous country SIM card conflicts, iPhone 3G. And I started running in old sneakers that hurt my legs. I would stop following the program every so often and have to back up a couple of days on the schedule and start again. I finished that program able to run for 30 minutes without stopping, though it took me longer than the projected 5 weeks. I then downloaded the Bridge to 10K because I needed another milestone while I was working towards the big 26.2. That training schedule taught me that I needed to bring my running shoes and use them on vacation. I finished the Bridge to 10K right after getting back to the States and graduated to the wonderful half marathon roadmap from the No Meat Athlete when I signed up for a half marathon in Disneyland with only 6 months to get my mileage from 6 miles to 13.1. I ran the half with another friend, Allison. Well, she far outpaced me, but we placed as a team. And I had to push myself through hip pain I did not know could exist on this planet. Ice is my best friend. 11 months after that, I ran a full marathon in Tucson, my hometown. My mom was a wonderful help, meeting me at the roadside, taking things I didn't want, giving me Larabars, bananas. And my best friend Jeremy met me at the 20-mile point. He waited for like an hour, thinking I was a lot faster than I was. And he walked with me for a minute. So that 26.2 hurt. A lot more than 13.1. But half marathons were cake now. I was, however, becoming the woman who would leave parties early because she had to run obscene distances on Saturday mornings. So, I thought I knew about pushing past walls and mental blocks. About finding that zone in which you are a magical unicorn galloping on rainbows and leaping with dolphins where nothing could touch you. Running taught me about pacing myself and the usefulness of chanting mantras such as, just keep running, just keep running. Or on extremely difficult days, running, running, I am running. To remind myself I was progressively doing something and should not stop. I had to call my brother, a weightlifter and now fellow fighter, to get some less PC motivation on Thanksgiving when I was doing my first 20-mile run. I won't repeat those words here. I've nearly collapsed from a lack of electrolytes. Whoops. I survived. I felt fantastic. To quote Muhammad Ali, again, the real conditioning began when the pain set in. That was when it was time to start pushing. That was when I could count every mile as extra strength and stamina. What counts in the ring is what you can do after you're exhausted. The same is true of life. People not familiar with these peaks of pain and ecstasy would say things like, well, maybe you're just not meant for running. When I would talk about the difficulty of my first 20-mile run, not understanding that I was proud I'd finished and didn't need to get picked up, rather than feeling defeated because my legs were sore. My runner friends would say, yes, welcome to the club. Wait until you want to do a insert longer and scarier distance here. During training for the marathon, I realized something profound. I'd had nightmares regularly in which a dangerous person would be chasing and harming me. But I could outrun him most of the time. He would still find me and hurt me and others. I didn't have the strength to win against this old, emotionally and spiritually draining foe. In life, I felt strong and a sense of peace when I would get over that first mile and find the rhythm of my breath and my feet hitting the road. And the runner's high, most excellent. My friend Allison kept trying to get me to these Sunday gatherings to train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Whatever that was. I resisted until the summer of last year. For some of the same reasons I resisted coming back to church on Sundays. Those were my lazy days. And of course I was nonviolent, like I said before. But then I decided to finally see what this whole thing was about and maybe learn some of that self-defense stuff. It was the hardest workout I have ever experienced. We work from 1 to 4:30 on most Sundays, 3.5 hours in the heat in a friend's garage where there are sometimes fans on. Doing body weight workouts, push-ups, pull-ups, abdominal torture. Lifting weights if there are less than 5 of us to show up. Sometimes running sprints. That's my least favorite running activity. I would rather do hill training. And then drilling, techniques, sweeps, chokes, takedowns, all before we actually started rolling. That's what jiu-jitsu practitioners call sparring. 4 months Mondays and Tuesdays meant not being able to use my arms and legs. Washing my hair looked like this. Over time, my muscles started to get more resilient. The soreness was less frequent and not as bad when I did have it. The Reverend Anne Schrantz from the Monte Vista UU congregation in Montclair put it beautifully in her sermon, Boxing and Spirituality. I'm not the first UU to talk about combat sports as something supremely positive. She says, through exercise, I learned that soreness is not pain. Exercise, physical, mental, or emotional, is soreness, not pain. Reframing pain has been part of my spiritual growth. This is a truth that most grounded fighters express, that through their training, being uncomfortable becomes something more tolerable, something that just is, something to work through. The physical discomfort of training makes you stronger mentally because you are consistently pushing past your unconscious, self-imposed limits. In my now only occasional nightmares, I was able to triangle choke assailants when I wasn't able to outrun them. Then, the nightmares just stopped. I don't have them anymore. My mind knew I was stronger in all aspects of life now, that I could handle whatever these predators represented. We must all face uncomfortable situations every day, and some of these situations demand that we take a powerful stance and push forward. Many UUs live lives that provide some sort of protection from discomforts that others must face regularly. And that's okay. Why not be safe, well-fed, and non-combative in our daily lives? It's nice to live in neighborhoods and with playgrounds not populated by potentially territorial drug dealers and their clientele. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be prepared for discomfort. There are periods of unemployment, breakups, depression, death, and personal moral dilemmas every day. How much discomfort can you take before you think you can't go on? My guess is that you can handle more than you believe you can. My coach is always pushing me past where I thought I could go, and I am grateful through every very tearful bench press and takedown drill. We found my point of failure and keep pushing it further away. The old me, the girl inside the woman, would not have believed how I currently spend my Sundays and schedule my life around, but she'd be happy. Conflict is not evil. It happens all the time. Be it in ourselves, as it manifests when I just can't seem to topple my grappling buddy, or when I start debating the morality of eating local, small farm, sustainably raised meats and unethically farmed quinoa or bananas. Or from external interactions. Life doesn't always go our way. We interact with people who don't share our views. We might face physical or emotional threats. Reverend Schrantz asks, what is spiritually significant about boxing in particular? You learn you can take a punch. That is the most important thing I have learned, and the literal informs the metaphorical. Life batters us and bruises us, whether the battering and bruising is by other people directly or by forces such as the economy more generally. We take punches in life. Through boxing, I have learned that bruises heal. As members of a faith that prides itself on working towards social justice, we must come up against opposition all the time. Dr. Ibu Patel, in his recent WARE lecture at General Assembly in Louisville, used the fighting metaphor to lead with one's chin. In regards to difficulties that we face in our work as a faith that wants to be inclusive and progressive, His examples involved holding his tongue during specific interfaith meetings and allowing projects to go in directions he hadn't planned. Now, I think this is a decent metaphor, but I also believe we shouldn't give our opponents the opportunity to take advantage of us. See Anderson Silva's recent fight against Chris Weidman? Going out chin tucked and respecting the other person's skill isn't a bad place to start, particularly if you're working on something like immigration rights, marriage equality, opposing unjust stop and frisk policies, or fighting to save vast amounts of land from fracking. You might still get clipped, you might get knocked out, but you learn from these hits. Your strategy and techniques evolve. You will live to fight another day in nearly all situations, and you don't look like a show-off who didn't respect the opposition. As Carlos Gracie Jr., from the family that brought the world BJJ, said, "There is no losing in jiu-jitsu. You either win or you learn." I try to take that philosophy with me off of the mat. The people I've met through doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu are really friendly and respectful, and some of the most introspective and insightful in my social network. We understand that there is a time for war and a time for peace. We just happen to find a great deal of peace on the mat simulating war. People who fight aren't violent at every turn. Many people who don't consider themselves fighters have an image of some huge, overly muscular jock with an attitude, picking fights at the bar and throwing down in movie theaters when people talk once. But when you spend so much time working on your body, you don't want to put it at unnecessary risk. And many fighters don't want to give the sport a bad name. During a match, you must be very mindful of your opponent, and if you're rolling with friends, even more so. You don't want to hurt a training partner with an over-enthusiastic arm bar or guillotine choke. You must be in the moment, aware of your body and your partner's, or you will end up in a position that is less than advantageous. And if you go up against someone who is stronger but has less technical training, you must keep mindful and calm and let yourself know it's only a matter of time before I win this. One more take-home mantra, it's only a matter of time. The upper belts, purple, brown, black, practitioners of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu are consistently aware of possible chains of movements that could come after the one that they are currently working, as well as ways to recover if something doesn't go as smoothly as they want. You get into the zone, and you flow while still being able to formulate a plan. Rickson Gracie, yes, the same family as Carlos, says, Jiu-Jitsu puts you completely in the moment where you must have a complete focus on finding a solution to the problem. This trains the mind to build that focus, to increase your awareness, your capacity to solve problems. It's like chess and Twister blended together to form a mental and physical puzzle game that may or may not have the ability to render you or your opponent unconscious. It's fun. It makes us more capable to find comfort in uncomfortable situations and to keep calm in seemingly chaotic moments. My training in Jiu-Jitsu, the honing of those capabilities, has spilled over to many parts of my life. I've played violin on and off throughout my adolescence and young adulthood. Most of the time, I felt this pressure to be amazing from the first note. But, of course, that didn't happen, and I would deal poorly with the frustration and my, at the time, quick temper. Those around me had best not talk to me until I'd had an hour to decompress after my rehearsal, or they would just hear a bunch of screaming or crying or both. Jiu-Jitsu taught me to slow it down, be at the level I was, and that I could move on to a different technique and come back to the double stop 16th notes. Rickson again. Physical strength, hard work, mental strength, perseverance, and spiritual strength, love and acceptance are the keys to continuous growth. Prophetic words if I've ever heard them. That's the kind of minds that Brazilian Jiu Jitsu attracts in my experience. People who are tapped into the way that life works and really want to be decent humans because it makes the most sense. Joe Rogan talks about this all the time. There is no reason to be cruel or to go out of your way to make life difficult for others. Practitioners of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu tend to be people who understand this too shall pass. Whether it's you passing your opponent's guard, getting out of an omoplata, or the devastation of losing a loved one, or the heartache of a breakup. It's the transitions that are rough. They are transitions, and not the permanent state of being. You have to stay present to see your opportunities, but you know it's only a matter of time before something new is happening. In addition to offering a new perspective on strength and resilience, fighting forms provide a safe space for people to work through their natural aggression and aggravation. I find Muay Thai to be more effective than Jiu Jitsu in this avenue because I can unleash force during striking that I can't during grappling. Though I have yet to go fully toe-to-toe with another person, there's nothing like landing a kick and hearing the smack of a hook well placed on the heavy bag when you're working through something difficult. You're allowed to get really primal when you're striking. I've connected with this energy during some dance and yoga workshops, which encourage participants to let go and dig deep, but this state happens all the time when I'm fighting. My body evolved to do these motions, and I work really hard to do them well. You get this endorphin peak that you released all that anger, and the zone takes over. You breathe through the movements and the sore muscles. You get the chance to improve your technique in this full body puzzle game after you've gotten the chance to blow off the steam and excess energy of whatever upset happened before. Physical, emotional, spiritual. I've been challenged by all of these, and the heavy bag or a friend with a set of Thai pads has helped me work through it. I just competed in my first no-gi tournament. You wear a top like this one, and either short shorts or something similar to surfers' board shorts, instead of gi pants and a jacket, like the ones that look like pajamas. When I started training, I feared the very concept of the unfamiliar no-gi setup. I was so accustomed to having thick material to grab, and I wasn't allowed to hold on to any clothing during the no-gi match. So the training was intimidating. I became more comfortable over time, and I stayed focused enough during the tournament to give all my opponents something to respect. Now, I didn't win them, not all of them anyway. I did learn, as Carlos Gracie Jr. put it, but I also got to teach some opponents along the way. I sat next to a very skilled person. I later found out that she is a blue belt, which is one belt ahead of me, and we chatted as we watched the competition. She was having lots of fun, as was I, and we laughed after the match, in which she got really close to completing a choke on me, and we ran out the clock, rolling around and locking each other up. I am hooked on jiu-jitsu and all the lessons and the personal transformation that come from it. I am stronger mentally and physically and more mindful because of my training and competing. Plus, if I have to go all mama bear and protect some cubs, I'm pretty sure I could. Jiu-jitsu stimulates my mind and my body, and the bonds I form with myself and others are great for my spirit. In life, much as in weightlifting, you get torn down and then built up. The prophets Chumbawamba sang in the 1990s, "I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down." Keep pushing yourselves to new strengths and new accomplishments. I have faith that you are tough and can do much. Thank you. Be well, be strong, and stay with it.